Good morning, everyone. This is Charles with Link Senior. We're going to get started in about a minute. Good morning, everyone. My name is Charles Vilmorin. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Link Senior, and I am extremely excited about today. So I'd like to welcome everyone to the first of its kind Activity Strong Virtual Summit. It is a whole day event that is the source of the work of a partnership between Link Senior, NAP, NCAP, and the Validation Training Institute. This platform was created as we're navigating the COVID-19 pandemic and crisis. It will continue, and its main role is to acknowledge, to educate, and to empower activity and life enrichment directors in senior living. Before we get started into our 11 a.m. session, I wanted to take a few minutes to tell you more about the initiative itself by reading to you the manifesto, which is that we believe a person is a person no matter their age. We believe life is more than just meeting an older adult's needs. We believe life is always wild and precious. We know not all those who wander are lost. We know memories are made by moments more than calendars. We know we should put our oxygen mask on first, but we don't always do that. We're not measured by the size of our strength, but by the strength of our heart. We are the loving and touching of the family's hand despite distances and walls. We are the how to their why. And finally, we are essential. We are activity strong. And with that, I would like to invite everyone to think about the text I read, and maybe just take a few moments of silence, as all of us have experienced some level of loss in the past few days, weeks, and months, and to reflect on how essential we are. Thank you for sharing this moment of silence with me. I'd like to introduce you to our calendar, our agenda for today. Again, the summit is a whole day event that starts from 11 a.m. Eastern, and I will end in terms of presentation at 6 p.m. tonight, Eastern. As you can see, we paired each session and we have a break. So we'll have a break from 1 to 1:30 p.m. Eastern, 3:30 to 4 p.m. Eastern, and then we'll have a break from 6 to 7, where at 7 p.m. Eastern, we will have a happy hour hosted by Brian Reif, and that's going to be on the Activity Strong Facebook group. With that, we can get started, and I am extremely excited to introduce you both to our first session of today, which is the Voice of Activity and Life Enrichment Directors, with Elisa Tagg, the Associate Director of NAP, and Don Worsley, the President of NCAP. Before we get started, I just want to read to you a few important housekeeping reminders, which is that today you can get up to 6 NAB, NCAP, and or NCCDP CU credits. To earn the credits, you need to attend the full session, as few as 1 session, as many as 6 sessions, and fill out the required post-summit CU survey, which will be emailed out to all attendees on June 23rd. Fill out that survey before midnight on Friday, June 26th, and CU certificates will be emailed by the end of the day on Wednesday, July 1st. I also wanted to share that this session is recorded and will be made available for future viewing if you wish. I also want to share the fact that, and that is a good reminder, that this session is going to be displayed on Zoom, and we are also going to be sharing this on YouTube, on Facebook Live. And for people that have been participating in our bingo game, the word for the session today is we, W-E. So for some of you that don't know what we're talking about, we're doing a bingo event game, and the word for this particular session is the word we. So with that, let me take a moment to introduce you to Elisa Tagg, who is the Associate Director of NCAP.
Oh, it's on.
And, I'm sorry? And Don Worsley, the President of NCAP. And I'm going to switch to their slides in just a second.
Okay, bye-bye.
All right. So Elisa, Don, can you see your slides here?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. And what I'll do is that I will change them when you want me to change them.
Great. Thank you so much. So as we know, COVID-19 has truly exposed the life-sustaining need for social engagement in our elderly population. And as an activity professionals, we have all stepped up and met the challenge during these unprecedented times. And through the use of technology, creative approaches, and innovative adaptations, the psychosocial and functional needs of our senior population have been met in this time of crisis. So in this session, we will explore the current state of social engagement within our care communities in relation to the regulatory expectations and guidance. We will also review the positive takeaways of this experience and how social engagement will forever be changed in our care community setting. So next slide, please. So my name is Elisa Tagg, and I am the Association Director for the National Association of Activity Professionals. We were established in 1982, and we were what we called the first political action campaign that really truly supported the activity professionals in the long-term care setting. Throughout our history, we've been able to create opportunities for the activity profession to shine. And National Activity Professionals Day was created in 1984 on the 4th Friday in January, and has since become an entire week-long time to celebrate activity professionals in the month of January. We also had the opportunity to create our certifying body, the National Certification Council for Activity Professionals, in 1986, and then that went on to be their separate entity. We have developed professional standards and ethics for all activity professionals along the way, and we continue to provide education, advocacy, and support through our website and through all of the programs that we provide and offer. And I'm very excited to be co-presenting today with Dawn Worsley. Next slide, please.
Thanks, Elisa. So I am Dawn, and the benefit of having both NCAP and NAP present together is we cover the entire country. Elisa's over on the West Coast, I'm over on the East Coast, so we can certainly share a lot of experiences with you. A little bit about NCAP, as Elisa said, we were established by NAP in 1986, and we do provide the highest credential qualifications of the certified activity professional. We're recognized by the Centers of Medicare and Medicaid Services, and we have activities and engagement certifications through all care settings. We've trained and certified over 150,000 individuals, and to address this nationwide need, NCAP provides education, training, and certification for the improved quality of life in any setting. NCAP certifications are based on a very rigorous criteria that ensure that all students meet the requirements for federal and state regulations. And having certified professionals who have helped millions of seniors, it becomes an important standard within the profession. Next slide, please. So in our session this morning, we're going to make sure that we have an understanding of the current state guidance, regulatory compliance as issued by CMS and the CDC. We'll also learn how to identify best practices to ensure continued successful engagement post this healthcare pandemic. And we will identify ongoing resources for the community as well as the activity professional. And you'll notice that Elisa and I will bounce back and forth because there's so much information and there's so much variations in what the world of healthcare looks like throughout the United States. We want to make sure that we give as much perspective and knowledge as possible.
Yes, thanks, Dawn. And it's really vitally important too that activity professionals understand that they are just as essential as all the other professionals that are working on the front lines during this time of crisis. And NAP and NCAP made a statement earlier in this crisis back in March in regards to the essential personnel setting within our skilled facilities and also our assisted living facilities. And this has always been the case as far back as the regulations go. And stating in FTAG 679, the skilled nursing facility must provide activities to meet and support the physical, mental, and psychosocial well-being of each resident. And then in FTAG 680, it talks about how the program must be directed by a qualified professional. And then we go into FTAG 741, where it talks about the community must have sufficient staff who provide direct services to residents to assure resident safety and attain or maintain the highest practicable physical, mental, and psychosocial well-being of each resident. So it clearly states that we are an essential profession to be a part of this whole process, especially during this time of COVID, when quality of life is so desperately needed while we're in isolation and physically distancing from each other during this time of crisis. Next slide, please.
So, as you've been following, if you've been part of the activity COVID summits or workshops that have been given by Link Senior, or anything that's been provided by NAP also, we use the language as the most recent CMS guidance. Now, this documentation is CMS recommendations that was released on May 18th, 2020. And it was a criteria for relaxing certain restrictions, mitigating the risk of any resurgence. There's also, that we'll go over in the next couple of slides, some guidance on visitation and service considerations, as well as the restoration of survey activities. What I need to stress also, at least this is what we're seeing here on the East Coast, even in our surrounding states, and I'm based in Maryland, is that the state and local health departments are taking these recommendations and then they're customizing them specifically for what is going on in their tailored area. So I think it's important to understand that as we go through this, there's not necessarily a right or wrong way of reopening nursing homes. And you're going to see a lot of variations on that. Now, the whole thing with this recommendation was that CMS was showing commitment to taking critical steps to ensuring America's nursing homes are prepared to respond to the COVID disease. Recommendations that we are going to talk about in the next couple of slides are for the state and local health departments, providing recommendations, again, to determine to limit and mitigate the risk of resurgence. Next slide, please. So what CMS had sent out as recommendations was a 3-phase criteria. So in some states like Pennsylvania, they're following this red, yellow, green type of protocol. Maryland, for reopening, Maryland follows phase 1, 2, and 3. So again, it's going to be what kind of language your specific state is using. However, in phase 1, they talk about the criteria for implementation that most facilities are postured right now, unless you're starting to see new cases of COVID, and that we have to maintain our highest level of vigilance. In phase 1 for visitation, visitation is generally still prohibited except with compassionate care situations. Now, I know, and Lisa, you can certainly add in, the state of Maryland on Friday released guidance from the governor saying that outdoor visitation would be acceptable as long as you met a series of all 5 of the criteria that the governor set in place. But these outdoor visitations was to be masked. It was a no-touch visitation, and that we limited visitors to 2 visitors per resident. So you'll see the differences as we go along. Elisa, have you heard of anything similar or different?
Yeah, so on the West Coast, we're a little bit behind on that. And so we're still, in the preliminary phases of everything, and outdoor visitation is still not currently being allowed. And one of the things too now that is just started on this area of the world is that we are now allowed to do window visits. But one of the things that we need to be cautioned with is the windows are not supposed to be opened during those visits, so you have to really look at that in understanding how every state is going to be different and unique on that. And we really have to be mindful of this too, because I know it's getting very frustrating for us as activity professionals, because we're thinking we're running out of ideas, but we're also, concerned. The family members are concerned and they're stressing about that. And I just heard of a facility in North Carolina that created that outdoor space, that they built a plexiglass like room kind of thing that we may have seen on social media, where the resident would sit on one side of the plexiglass and the family member sat on the other side of the plexiglass. And the surveyors cited them because they called it an addition to their building and they did not receive the proper permits to build that. So it's a very challenging time. So every state is taking this differently. So you really need to go back to your states, your governments there, and understand, what phases you are in as a state will kind of consider what phases you'll be in as far as your community is concerned. So if you are in like phase 2 or 3 of your state where you're allowing, maybe 100 people now you're in gathering, you may be able to start doing these outdoor visits like Dawn mentioned that's happening in her state. But because, like in Nevada, we're still at 50. So we're just, figuring out things along the way too. So everything has to be done by what your state recommends. And that's the frustration, I think, for everybody else, because you may see, like I may see now, hey, Dawn's residents can now visit with their family. That's not fair. I'm going to start doing it anyway in my state, even though it's not allowed. So we have to be really cautious and careful.
Yeah, that's a great point, Elisa, because even though the state of Maryland put those guidelines in, if your specific community does not meet all 5 of those requirements, you cannot have outdoor visitation. So, you know, I think really good communication, not only with the families, but for us, with the residents, making sure that our residents understand what the guidance is and why the guidance is still remains into effect, whatever that may be. And you can do that as part of your activity programming also, is to continuously keeping them updated. In phase one, the last couple things is there's still very strict restrictions on communal dining, no group activities, restricted group activities. So again, these are recommendations. I believe that as each state evaluates, they're going to set up the same thing, a series of recommendations that will be facility by facility based. But, you know, they have to take a look at the hot spots that are going on right now. Next slide, please. Okay, so with phase two, again, some criteria is there has to be no new nursing home onset of COVID cases within 14 days after you have started phase one. Nursing homes cannot experience any staff shortages. They have to have adequate supplies of personal protective equipment, essential cleaning and disinfecting supplies, and access to COVID-19 testing. They are also now, when we're looking at phase two and phase three, the recommendations is that the local health departments need to be keeping an eye on hospital capacity. What does the community look like? Again, in phase two, visitation is generally prohibited. Still restriction entry for any non-essential healthcare personnel. Now, they start talking about group activities in this point, but with no more than 10 people in a group. So as Elisa and I have been talking to several of you know, people that reach out to us on email, you know, our biggest suggestion is start thinking, and that's what this is all about, is start thinking about what does post-COVID activities look like? And what have you learned? What are the positive things you've learned from this experience that you're going to take on? Because we'll talk about that in this presentation, is all the positives that have come out of it. And then there is some debate about testing criteria for staff. There's the highest recommendation by CMS right now is weekly testing. But again, we'll see how that unfolds. Next slide. Or Lisa, do you have anything on this slide? I'm sorry.
No, you're good. I was just going to say too, yeah, because I just heard through our state in Nevada, they're not going to mandate the weekly testing. So it's just every state is going to be following different guidelines. So that's why it's really important that you refer back to your state.
Absolutely.
Anissa and Don, I just have one quick question, which is that in general, who is the best contact person for any questions regarding these different phases within the community, based on your experience?
That would be the lead state surveyor that you would need to contact. So your Bureau of Licensure and Certification, or whoever your surveyors are employed through. So that would be your lead survey team. And they've been I know in our state of Nevada, our administrators have been having weekly calls with the surveyors to discuss this information. So hopefully, you know, the administrators in other states are having that same kind of conversation happening already. And so the activity professionals could reach out, or whoever the other professionals could reach out to the administrators for guidance on that too.
Absolutely. And I can tell you in like the Maryland area, our survey team certainly has the most updated information. And because Maryland, you know, you can go from a rural area to a urban area in less than 45 minutes. Our local Baltimore City Health Department has set up even more stringent guidelines than what the overall state has had. So there's a lot of information that is coming out and that they're discussing on a daily basis. I can tell you that, you know, in the state of Maryland, 3 times a week, there are cluster calls on Monday, Wednesday, Friday that has everything from our state surveyors to our local health department, our Maryland Health Department, and our state healthcare association, trying to come up with some type of consistency or rationale on how they're going to move through these phases.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah. Okay, next slide is phase 3. So this is the end of the phases, and this will kind of give you, again, some general ideas of maybe what CMS is seeing as a post-world of healthcare. And in this case, I want to stress group activities, including outings, to no more than the number of people where social distancing among residents can be maintained, appropriate hand washing and face covering for both residents and as well as the staff. Again, the same thing with communal dining. CMS has released some additional recommendations and guidance on what does dining look like in a long-term care or an assisted living. You know, is there a need, especially if you're having social distancing, the days of having 4 people at a table may not be realistic right now. So what modifications can be made, or do you look at multiple dining sessions, which then, of course, the longer they're in the dining room, could also affect your activity programming. If you're looking at social distancing for activities, you know, what do you do when you would have typically had a big church group or a live entertainment where you're not even using the tables because you have 40, 50 people in a room for that activity? So again, these are recommendations. They're not set in stone. This is just things to think about, but it certainly, I think, opens our eyes that the world's not going to continue or not going to go back to pre-COVID. And we've seen some great innovative things on the internet. Elisa, do you have anything?
Yeah, exactly. You know, and so it's going to be really challenging too, because we're going to have to really think differently in a whole new mindset, you know, when we are allowed to go to this new phase, depending on our states, you know, where we can do outings again. But okay, how many people can fit on our bus? Okay, we're going to have to really take that into consideration. So we may have to do, like if we're doing shopping outings, we may have to make multiple trips to accommodate all the residents that want to participate. Again, with the entertainment, you may have to do entertainment in shifts, or continue you use your technological devices that you have available in your communities to broadcast that entertainment throughout the community as well, so that you don't have large groups of people gathered at one time.
Addison, Don, we had a few questions here about, you know, what do you see going on for senior living, so assisted living, memory care, and IL. And we also had a few questions about adult days. Would you be willing to offer, like, what's different? Right. And actually, with that, let me put 2 questions together. One question I thought was interesting is, why are there more restrictions on nursing homes? I'd love to hear your take on that.
I would love to answer that one, Dawn, if you can respond.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
The more restrictions on the nursing homes are because they're heavily regulated by CMS. Yeah. The other communities are regulated by the states. Now, I can tell you, in the state of Nevada, our adult daycare health centers opened recently, but they are only allowed 20% occupancy. So we have an adult day health center just down the street from where I live that always had 100 to 150 people attending every day, and now they're only allowed to have 25. So it's been really challenging too for those people that rely on this service. They're not able to participate, you know, as much because they still can't take their loved one to the safe environment for them to be, you know, be safe. And so that's been really frustrating too for the activity professional that works in that setting, because she's not been able to do the quality programs that she wants to do. And we are all frustrated by that because we're not able to do what we used to do. And more than likely, we will never be able to do what we used to do. And that's why we have to come up with the new way of thinking and the new ideation of everything going on. And I know assisted livings are still following the same guidelines like here in the state of Nevada, because right now, like I said, we're only up to 50. Most of our parks are not even open yet. So we still have to look at alternative ways to do things. Dawn, what do you think about that?
And I'll just add on, yep, absolutely, perfect. I'll just add on, like Elisa was saying, is that, yes, there's no federal regulations for assisted living and IL, but just like the beginning of the pandemic, everything that CMS, when they set out guidance, they said, please, assisted livings and ALs, this is recommended for you, because we're all in communal living situations regardless. And just to, again, to add on why what's the difference between all the regulations and long-term care? Long-term care receives federal dollars, Medicare dollars. So anytime there are federal dollars associated, there are federal regulations to ensure that the money is being spent appropriately.
Thank you very much.
And we can go on to the next slide.
Yeah.
So yeah, thanks. And so, you know, we've been really hopefully taking advantage of technology and using this during this time of the pandemic to ensure that we are accommodating as best as we can to meet the individual needs. So there's a lot of things that I really want to reiterate with this, you know, that yes, we are in what everybody's calling social distancing, but what we need to refer to it in our communities is the physical distancing, because we don't want to lose that social model of care that we've been working so hard to create and to do. And so I just saw one of the questions come across, you know, what do I mean when I say up to 50? We are only allowed to gather up to 50 people in our state right now. We cannot be gathered in a larger group of people. So that's on the outside, not in the nursing home or the assisted living or any of the senior living communities. But also CMS just recently released a new resource on toolkits for the states as well that you can find on the CMS website that lists each state and what their toolkits are and who to reach out to. Plus, you know, the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration, or SAMHSA, has also released a lot of great resources too to help with the trauma needs that may be happening. And when we talk about, you know, using technology and going through everything that we're doing, there's a lot of information that has been made available. And NAP has really had a wonderful opportunity to partner with so many great resources and organizations that are out there, like Link Senior and other organizations that have really taken the time to step up and participate and provide supportive services that can be used through technology as well and through live broadcasting. Also, you know, we recently heard from CMS that they had the application available that you can apply for grants to use the grant money that may be available in your states for devices that you can use, like iPads or other technological devices to be able to use to be able to provide the technology as well. And one of the things that I've been really excited with is you could probably reach out with your state ombudsman services as well, because I know in our state of Nevada, the ombudsman secured the grant here, and then they are providing the tablets and things like that to our residents in our long-term care communities as well, to ensure that there is the ability to have the video conferencing or to utilize any kind of alternative way to socialize with family members and different things like that. And so really the key here is that we have to figure out the best way to combat loneliness and boredom, because we know that's happening very much frequently with our residents and the people that we serve, and being able to recognize how we can go about doing that through all of these technological services that are being made available. And
absolutely. Oh, sorry.
No, you're good.
Lisa.
No, you're good. Thank you. Go ahead.
No, I wanted to say about the live broadcasting. I really think, you know, for many activity professionals, we've been using technology in various creative ways pre-COVID. And I know you've heard me talk about it. I'm beating a dead horse, but I can't say enough about what a lifesaver it was to be able to connect into our cable provider and through Zoom provide live broadcasting. So ever since March 13th, every group activity, from a cooking class to a bingo game to a church service to a prayer service to a happy hour, we've been able to broadcast directly into the residents' rooms. And I can tell you that the participation that we've seen has doubled during this COVID phase. So it started getting me thinking about what does post-COVID look like, especially when we're looking at limiting sizes. You know, I work in a facility, so I have a room that, you know, we could hold, per the fire department, we could hold 70 people in this room. But now with the physical distancing that they're talking about with recommendations, now I'm down to about 18 people. So again, Lisa, you brought up some great suggestions and points about looking at multiple activities or one activity provided multiple times so that people can come, be able to participate. And what does that look like? The CDC has an amazing, it's on cdc.gov/coronavirus. It's the coronavirus disease supporting your loved ones in a long-term care facility. It came out a couple weeks ago, but it talks about, until we get to the point where visitation is allowed in the community, what are some great things besides technology, video conferencing, FaceTime, which I think many facilities around the United States have been doing, cards and letters, recorded video messages. I've talked to communities who have emailed all the families, and because they do the live broadcasting, they've said, send some pictures and, like a little phrase, and they put together this PowerPoint, and they broadcasted it for a couple hours throughout the day, and it just scrolled for all 200 residents, and it was exciting. They got to see a message from their loved one and get to see old family photos and that type of thing. Visits, again, as Elisa, you were talking about window visits. We've seen on social media parades of cars that go by. Visual expressions of care. This one I kind of liked also, where family members could decorate the trees or the benches or plant special flowers outside of your community. So when the residents do see it, it gives them that visual expression. Care packages, again, care packages. Elisa, I'm sure the same thing, you hear the same thing, depending on where you're at and what your facility, is allowing. We have just gotten to the point here that we will allow third-party packages to be received. So if it's packaged at a Target or a Walmart or an Amazon, then it can come into the building, but we're not allowing family members to come up and drop off packages because, again, the risk, we're trying to mitigate the risk. And then this is another one that was really unique on here was dedication. So if you're doing, whether it's over the intercom or whether you're doing live broadcasting, just something where you're reaching out to the resident each day like, hey, Elisa, this song's for you today. I hope you have a fantastic day. Happy birthday, or whatever the case may be.
Yeah, those are great resources too that we could be doing as well, and other things, spirit weeks. And I know we may be really tired of spirit weeks, but we could certainly come up with a theme for each week and focus on that theme all week long and cater to that theme. One of the things that I thought was really fun were like fashion shows. Being able to walk around, especially those that communities that have to really don the full PPE. I think it would be really fun to walk the hallways wearing your full PPE and just kind of model the clothing and be like, hey, this is what I'm wearing these days, and not even having to worry about that. Showing off your headbands with the buttons that have been sewn on so that your face mask can fit properly, and doing different things like that, and just kind of making light or making positive of a very negative situation for so many. And again, I can't reiterate enough that every state is going to be different, and every community will be different. Every corporation is going to be different too, to recognize and do how everything you're doing. Other apps maybe you haven't thought about would be like Marco Polo. That's a really fun app for doing video conversations with people. Of course, TikTok is always a lot of fun too, doing different things like that, Skyping, FaceTime, Facebook Messenger. I'm seeing that a lot of people don't have the way to do the live broadcasting, but you can come up with alternative ways by using Facebook Live or getting a Zoom account and having the residents who have their own devices can log into the Zoom account, and you're able to do it that way through your Wi-Fi system in your communities as well. So there's a lot of options that you can be doing, and there's a lot of great resources available. We do have, of course, our emails and links at the end of today's presentation where you can see how both NAP and NCAP have really worked hard to provide all the resources up to date on our websites under our COVID-19 pages that are easy to access and research that. Lots of museums and opera houses and different things have released a lot of their live broadcasts, so you can do virtual tours. I just saw there was a European tour company that was paying money to do European tours virtually so that you can receive credit for that, to let them know how the tour, if you like the tour on a virtual level, because that's how tour companies are now having to make changes, is to do virtual tours. So just looking at that too. So there's lots of great opportunities and options that are available and out there. Next slide, please.
Actually, before we get into that, I just, as a reminder, Alice and Dawn, you talked about these grants for devices. Both NAP and NCAP on their website offer guidance and education for that, correct?
Yes,
okay.
yes, we do. And that's the other thing that CMS released too, was the listing, and that's available on our website too, who to contact in your state to do the grant application as well. Right. So there's a lot happening with that. So of course, now we're getting into, what best practices have been emerging from everything that's been going on. And I think the key, we've heard it before, out of the box thinking. So we really have to get out of our boxes and really determine, what is going to be the new way of doing things. And I really like this because with EdTech 675, it talks about the quality of life, how we have to maintain the highest practicable physical, mental, and psychosocial well-being, which is consistent with the comprehensive assessment. And I really think it's important is this comprehensive assessment. The activity assessment really caters to the social and the interest of the residents that we really need to dig deeper to learn more, so that we can really focus more now on life enriching experiences rather than events, and looking at how we can do better with that. And so I just want to point out, because right now we're at a time with no groups, no volunteers, no entertainers, no vendors. And so sometimes it's just us. We're the only person in our community, and we're doing the best we can. And, we've had some great social media pages that have shared so many awesome resources. And I love seeing all the creativity that comes with the people that are decorating their activity carts and taking them around in their hallways of their community and doing different things and recognizing how vitally important that is. Now, I personally am not that creative of an individual, and I would never think to decorate my activity cart that way. And I also feel like I should not look at that and feel like I'm a failure because I haven't properly decorated my cart. You really need to cater what you do to what you are capable of doing. What is in your skill set? What are you able to do? And so looking at activities, we want to be sure that we're promoting self-esteem, that we're promoting pleasure, comfort, education, creativity, that we're looking at success and independence. And then we're really focusing on community life. This is the key thing too, to really think about. Instead of a schedule, instead of having a calendar and focusing on what we're doing at 9 o'clock and 10 o'clock and 11 o'clock, let's really focus on life in general. Think about what life is like for us, ourselves, how we live our normal day-to-day life. Let's bring that into the community and start doing that same kind of concept, having just life happening in our communities and being able to really think about how we can be more creative and how we can engage more of the individuals. And that is all done through individual engagement. And focusing on that community life and focusing on leisure experiences that are life enriching, rather than trying to, okay, my numbers are down, I can't have 50 people anymore in my program. Now I need to really focus on how I'm going to cater an individual to the one. And that's going to be really challenging for many of us, especially when there are just one person. So we're going to have to really manage our time effectively to make sure that we can just do the simple pleasures of life, so to speak, and work with that aspect of it all. Dawn, what do you think?
No, I think you were right on. I'm going to touch upon morale. So, as activity professionals, we often say that we are in charge of the morale of the residents as well as the staff oftentimes. And I can tell you that our energy is what other staff are feeding off of. I am so proud of the activity profession. I have never been more proud than to see all of this creativeness. Elisa, like you, I don't have a creative bone in my body, but I do what I'm good at. And then I use the resources that I find on social media and, conferences and education sessions like this and what NAP does to be able to gain all those great examples and bring it in. I will tell you that one of the things that we implemented with the staff, with the residents, is some of the activities we do is, would you like to, make a card or a poster, and we take the supplies to the room for the staff. And I wish I could take a tour of my building, because all of the resident artwork is hanging up and down the hallways with messages to the staff. Thank you for what you're doing. You're amazing. We appreciate what you do. And I think, again, it's that back and forth that the residents and the staff have, because we don't have family, so we are the family.
Yeah, and I know it's frustrating, that we are working with corporations that have such high expectations of what we do. And we really think, that the corporation may know better than we do. And we actually know our residents well enough. And sometimes we're going to have to step up and say, as the advocate for our residents, this new way of thinking is the direction we need to go. We're not going to be here to keep everybody, active and engaged. There's no way we can fulfill a calendar where we have something happening every hour of the day. That's just not the way things should be anymore. We need to look at having rest. We need to schedule break time. We need to schedule relaxation time. We need to schedule shoot the breeze time, and just have an opportunity to drink and enjoy that cup of coffee instead of going. And that's going to help with the morale too of everybody, because everybody's not going to feel so regimented, to go boom, 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 and doing everything that we need to do in order to get it all done. And, I'm taking this information straight from the regulations, and you can read that in the guidance of the regulations on how CMS is encouraging more life-enriching experiences. They are encouraging more community life rather than a structured program. So we are seeing that transition happening, and this is a great wake-up call for all of us with having everything be restricted right now, to really change our whole mindset and just let's stop for a minute, let's breathe, and then now let's go in this new direction of how things are happening.
Great.
Next slide.
Okay, we can go on to the next slide.
Yep.
We had a couple questions here. This was fantastic, Addis and Don. We had a couple questions about staffing and number of activities. And one of them, which I thought was very interesting, is do you believe that one of the consequences of COVID-19 will see our communities see more activity directors? Do you see a trend? Any discussion about that?
Can I give you my opinion first, and then Elisa, you can share what you're what you're seeing over there.
Please
so here's the tragedies, and here's the reality. COVID-19 has caused many buildings to significantly decrease their census. Many buildings chose not to take admissions, or were not allowed to take admissions. So you have communities that used to be at a census of, let's say, 200 residents that are now down to 130, 140. That means that the community themselves are losing about $400,000 of profit every month, or revenue every month. The significant financial impacts on the long-term care, whether it's assisted living or into assisted living or nursing homes, are going to be significant. And unfortunately, right now, as companies are trying to recoup the financial loss and also prepare for the increased expenses with PPE and testing, we are seeing that there are actually a decrease in activity positions. People, as they start cutting positions throughout nursing homes, I have seen it more across the board, but activity professionals are losing their jobs because they just don't have the caseload right now in the nursing homes. So I don't know. My hope would be that as they build up their census, we can regain. But I think if we honestly want to look at what a long-term care building or an assisted building look like, the day of having 2 people in a room, or 3 people in a room, or 4 people in a room may not be sufficed. So I know many corporations are looking at what beds will they take to service right now to ensure that they have a COVID isolation or a PUI observation, area.
Yeah, and you know, Don, you're so right, and we have seen that even here in Las Vegas, where we've had an increase of COVID in our nursing homes too. And the nursing homes that have the private rooms have had significantly 0 to very limited cases. And so it's very interesting how they've been able to isolate that and not have the transmission happen. And you're right. You know, the bottom line is that activities are not paid. You know, CMS does not have a reimbursement for activities. That's the bottom line. And when we can get that finally created, which we've been fighting for the last 30 plus years, to have activities be a part of this bottom line process and to be part of the reimbursement, that is when we will be able to do that. And CMS's response over the years have been this universal worker concept where, you know, everybody works in the activity department. And so that has been the mindset where everybody can be properly trained. I foresee, you know, that activity directors will stay on board, you know, the community life directors, life enrichment, whatever your title is, you will stay on board as the director, but you'll have a bigger group to work with because you'll be training the CNAs to do activities. You'll be training housekeeping or dietary staff to do activities and to do different things along the way. And so we will see probably an increase on how our profession is revered because of everything going on, but we will definitely see a decrease in that staffing ratio because they will really look at now the facility must provide that ongoing program and pushing that to be the case where everybody refocuses on this universal concept and being prepared for that. Definitely.
Yeah, I think that's good points. Which then, you know, again, we're going to continue to stress from both NAP and NCAP is how important education is, and certification is, so that you've got the skill set you need in order to provide the services and set that up.
Right.
And I agree. Jennifer just said not everyone can do activities. Absolutely, Jennifer. Absolutely. So as we always will advocate, both of our organizations will always advocate, you would never put, and this is no disrespect to anyone, but you would never put a housekeeper in a nursing assistant's position because there are special skill sets for each one. The same thing, you wouldn't take someone out of dietary and put them on that great big floor buffing machine because there's certain skill sets. So, or you wouldn't have me as the cook, trust me. So we do have to advocate for our profession that we have a skill set that we have to maintain. But I do think we're going to go through a transition because it is a business and we have to rebound it. I don't want to get off on that tangent. We could be here for another half an hour. But just know that,
let's go to the next slide, Charles. Let's just skip this one and get to the future of our profession since we're almost out of time. Dawn, go ahead.
Yes. So again, while there's no guidance that exists that could be interpreted to mean to restrict groups, especially with activities during this COVID phase, we have to keep in mind that the future is going to look a whole lot different than what it currently does. Everything that you've heard about today, again, as far as group outings, group type of activities, communal dinings, even the fact of wearing face masks. And again, we often joke that sometimes for residents that have cognitive deficits, having them just wear the basics of clothing is often challenging, but to keep that face mask in place is going to be challenging as we go through the future of activities. Please know that NAP and NCAP are here to support the activity profession every step of the way. You know, our resources and networking opportunities far exceed anything out there because we are the experts in the delivery, the education, the credentialing of activity professionals, and as well as NAP as the advocacy. So we're all in this together. We've been in this together. I think the future is going to continue to show the value and the essential need of the activity professional, the strength and the change in which we have brought upon the delivery of healthcare in a worldwide pandemic.
the future is bright, and I really, really feel such a positive feeling coming out of this, as we start to come to the final phases of this COVID pandemic, as we prepare maybe for the next round. I really feel strongly that the activity professional is not going anywhere. We're going to be needed more than ever. And that is really important to recognize too. And NAP is constantly on the forefront of advocating for our professionals. And I will say education is your most valuable resource you have. Get educated, get higher educated, become certified through NCAP. All of these things will help you to be better received by organizations that you really know your stuff. And so the ongoing resources, there's constant change. New information is coming out on almost a daily basis. And so we encourage you to subscribe to the NAP social media pages, the NCAP social media pages. We do Facebook Lives every week so that we can keep everybody up to date. We're providing these virtual conferences. We're very excited to have partnered with Link Senior and NCAP on these virtual conferences to ensure that you are being able to have the most recent, the most up-to-date information and engagement that's happening. I've had the opportunity over the last month, I've been making phone calls to our NAP members just to check in on people. And everybody I've talked to has been very positive in what they're doing and what they're going through. Everybody works in a different type of skill set and setting all across the entire United States and Canada. And everybody seems to be very positive and having, being able to be as positive as we could be. That's the beauty of being activity professionals, is we are the positive, quote, cheerleaders of the profession. And so we need to make sure that we are allowing for that. And NAP is really excited because we've been partnering with our state associations to ensure as virtual conferences become the new way of being able to communicate, to ensure that the states are still getting that proper educational opportunities as well.
Great.
Absolutely. And NAP and NCAP continue to be that voice for the profession, as we always have. And I do want to end, again, as Elisa said, on a positive note. We've learned a lot of great things from COVID. It was the worst experience, and for some of us, it still is. We still have a little bumpy road ahead of us, but I do believe that the profession will be stronger and the professional will be more versatile than ever before.
Absolutely.
So this is our contact information. Elisa and I love to do this together. I think, again, we put our heart and soul into the profession and being able to make sure that we have the most up-to-date information for you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Charles.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much, Alisa. Thank you very much, Don. On that note, I want to wish everyone on the phone to be as quickly as possible in phase 3 and beyond, and get into redefining the future of activity and life enrichment. And I admire leadership from both of you as individuals and your organizations. I want to share the fact that as Link Senior started this Activity Strong, we're actually very excited to share that we are going to continue this effort beyond COVID-19. And the way we're going to do that is we've agreed to enter a partnership with NAP and NCAP to continue thought leadership efforts through educational and other type of initiatives. So we're actually extremely excited to share with you the fact that we have decided to have quarterly gatherings, which are going to be smaller than this whole day summit. And these are the dates that we have on our calendar: September 15th, 2020, December 1st, 2020. And then next year, if you're so bold to schedule a year ahead, feel free to place that on your calendar, June 22nd, in 364 days. Now, one thing that resonated the most to me in the last comments from Alisa and Don was how do we have more of us, right? So apparently we're not going to be hiring much more, but how do we extend the profession? And that goes with extending the reach of NCAP and NAP. And I'm actually very pleased to announce that with this effort, with this Activity Strong effort, as you might have noticed, we launched an Activity Strong store where you can buy very fancy masks and t-shirts, and the proceeds of this store will go towards the scholarship fund of NAP in order to educate more staff. And as of today, we've already reached more than $200. So I encourage everyone to go and buy that swag, be proud of being Activity Strong, and also providing resources for people that can't afford being the education to be activity directors. Alissa and Don, thank you very much. We'll send the survey at the end of the day today, but I wanted to thank you for your leadership and your education today. Now, thank you. I'd like to, without further transition, get into the second piece of our session today, and that is on how COVID-19 broke resident engagement and how we fixed that. So with that, I'm just going to stop the recording and start it again so that